so many times so many times, on Monday through Friday, even Saturday, Sunday, and you have seen him in the morning and afternoon, and a new day, and then late night, and you see him out and about in the community. He's one of the more recent stories about the young lady that was missing, whatever, and how the Lord has blessed him to go in and out among the people, like on Missionary Ground, and have the wisdom to be able to speak and be able to show the love of Christ among the individuals who are out and going through whatever it is that they're experiencing through the stories. But he can share his testimony and what God has given him. We want you to, as we acknowledge him, we want to acknowledge each and every person as he comes in his own way. Our own Brother Cunningham. Amen.
Good afternoon. Praise the Lord, saints. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this program. I really appreciate it. And I actually God was in my life. I went to Pastor Garrison, Daryl, and as Daryl mentioned, I have my beautiful fiance here today. Last time I saw her was my girlfriend. My fiance. And also giving honor to my parents, my sister. And so when I was having the privilege and honor to be actually a part of this every time I managed to speak. So when Mom brought this to me today, or when she brought this to me, I didn't know what to speak about. So this is at her request, what I'm doing. And so as far as what I'm going to, it's the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, and so my mom reminded me that years ago when I attended church in Lansing, I actually memorized a large portion of the speech and performed it essentially at the church that I went to at the time. Today I'm just going to be reading. I'm not going to recite it, I don't have to memorize it. I'm going to read it and just to honor, his legacy. So many have sacrificed for our people, and as Missionary Brown mentioned, he paid the ultimate sacrifice. So I'm just going to read his speech. All right. I am happy to join with you today on what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the Bank of Justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. And so we've come to cash this check, a check that will give us, upon demand, the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of pulling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children. It would be fatal for the nation to overlook the urgency of the moment. This sweltering summer of the Negro's legitimate discontent will not pass until there is an invigorating autumn of freedom and equality. 1963 is not an end, but a beginning. And those who hope that the Negro needed to blow off steam and will now be content will have a rude awakening if the nation returns to business as usual. And there will be neither rest nor tranquility in America until the Negro is granted his citizenship rights. The whirlwinds of revolt will continue to shake the foundations of our nation until the bright day of justice emerges. But there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the warm threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle